Welcome back to the Making the Madness YouTube channel. Sean back again for another video. This one is on the Utah Utes securing two commitments in the past day. One from Dusan Mahorcic from Illinois State, averaged 9.9 points per game and 7.2 boards per game last season for the Redbirds, and Gach, who started his career at Utah for 2 seasons before transferring to Minnesota last year and having an up and down season. He will now go back to Utah where his journey in college began, and he's going to be a solid piece for Craig Smith without a doubt. It's a really transfer-heavy team, but they lost so much of their roster from last season. You look at what they had. Rylan Jones transferred to Utah State. Kind of funny there going Craig Smith came from Utah State. Rylan Jones goes to Utah State. Timmy Allen going to Texas. You have Alfonso Plummer going to Illinois. You have Pella Larson going to Arizona. There's just been so much turnover with this Utah team from last season, but this is going to be a solid team next year. I have no doubt about it because Craig Smith has been able to find ways to win games at North Dakota, at Utah State, going to the tournament 3 consecutive seasons. And I think he's going to find a way to do that at Utah. I don't know if they're a tournament team this season, but the foundation is certainly there when you look at the roster. Raleigh Worcester was a really sneaky player last season for Utah State, and when he was injured, they really struggled to find consistency at that point guard spot, and they were able to be better when he came back from his injury last year. He was only a freshman, and then you have at the 2 spot, David Jenkins Jr., a career 40% shooter from outside. He'll slide in nicely and knock down a ton of threes next season. At the 3, you're likely going to start Marco Anthony, who also came with Craig Smith from Utah State. He's a high-level defender, good athlete, can shoot the ball. It'll either be Marco Anthony or Gach. We'll have to see what happens there at that spot. At the 4, it'll be Dusan Mahorcic coming in from Illinois State, like I said. And one of the players I'm excited to watch next season, Brandon Carlson, averaged 9 points per game, 5 boards, and a block and a half per game last season. He flashes a ton of potential. He's 7 foot, but he's a little too skinny at the moment. He's going to have to add some muscle, and I think he's going to really hit the gym this offseason. He went 10 for 20 from deep. I think that's going to only improve because his shooting form is very nice for a guy that's 7 foot. He's going to probably take more threes next season if I had to guess. I bet that's something that Craig Smith is really going to put into the system. Brandon Carlson blossoming as a player a little more. He can hit a mid-range too very nicely. He hit a few nice pull-up mid-ranges in a couple games last season. That was very impressive to me. Carlson's a guy that I have as in my preseason Pac-12 all-first team. There's 10 players on that, so it's not as impressive as other conferences. But I could see him averaging 13 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, and 2 blocks per game pretty easily. That's just the kind of potential he has, and I'm all the way in on the Brandon Carlson potential. He's a little bit of an older junior than most juniors, so that could help him in some cases. But when you look at the rest of the roster, the bench is pretty deep. You don't have a lot of star power on the team overall, but you had Boston Holt from Coffeyville Community College. He's a combo forward. He's going to add a lot of athleticism and rebounding ability next season for Utah. Coffeyville Community College won the JUCO national tournament. They were the champions last year. Riley Batten decided to leave the transfer portal. He's been a consistent 6'9" shooter at that 4 spot, good pick and pop kind of guy throughout his career. Lahat Chun, he's showed a lot of potential throughout his career. He just hasn't got a lot of consistent minutes in his early days at Utah. He also entered the transfer portal. I thought he was going to land with a high-level mid-major team and really thrive. But I think he could really be solid for Utah next season should he get those minutes. When you look at his stats, they certainly don't pop off the table. 1 point per game, 1 rebound per game. But like I said, when he plays, he does good things. Against Arizona State last year in an absolute blowout win, he had 9 points and hit a 3, 4 for 4 from the field. You know, he just didn't get a ton of minutes. That's kind of what it comes down to. But Lahat Chun, he's athletic. He can shoot. I'm curious to see how Craig Smith is able to get him involved into the team this season. He decided to stay for a reason. He could have left. He did enter the portal, but he decided to stay. So I'm curious to see what he ends up doing next season. I don't suspect him to have a huge role, but he's a guy that could break out, maybe average like 6 points per game and 5 rebounds per game off the bench. You could definitely say that's a solid piece for sure. Then you have Jackson Brenchley off the bench. Gabe Madsen's another incoming transfer. Had a solid season for Cincinnati. He didn't play for Cincinnati last year, actually. His brother did, Mason Madsen. Gabe Madsen was the more highly touted of the two Madsen brothers. Mason still at Cincinnati. Gabe opted out of the season, but Gabe is similar to his brother in a lot of ways. He can shoot the ball from outside. I'm curious to see the way he plays after not playing this past season. Gabe Madsen, a name to watch for sure. Utah, like I said, not a ton of star power. I think Brandon Carlson's a really good piece. I think that Utah is going to be a competitive team. I don't think they're an NCAA tournament team, but Craig Smith wins games because of his coaching. And Utah has a really good home court advantage. They have really good fans. If it's full capacity, that's definitely going to be a big time advantage. And they've been able to win some home games because it's just a tough place to play. I think that mountain trip you have to take where you go to Colorado, go to Boulder, it's so hard to play in Boulder because of the elevation, and Utah's home crowd is very good. So you see a lot of high caliber teams really struggle on that mountain road trip. And, Colorado in recent years has been a lot better. They've struggled at times throughout the past 5 years or so. And Utah has been really up and down. They haven't really been good since the Jakob Poeltl year, I think they made the Sweet 16, but they just haven't really been good since then. They've been like an NIT level team for a number of years. They've been hovering around the 500 mark. I think they'll be above 500 this season. They're not a tournament team. They're probably an NIT team. But Craig Smith will have them in the tournament within 2 or 3 years pretty easily in my mind. But this Utah team is really building. They've added some good pieces. Mahorcic had his list down to Utah, Texas, and a few other high major schools. And getting him over Texas is a pretty big get. Definitely watch out for this Utes team next season. They'll rack up a few big name upsets, maybe over Oregon, maybe over UCLA, but those are the kind of wins that Craig Smith will have to get under his belt if he wants to get this team into the NCAA tournament next season. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and until next time, have a good one.